The Krogan are the absolutist of units in the Mass Effect universe and a species of immense power and strength. Standing much taller than some of the other species around them, they believe themselves to be bred for war and death. This fatalism has dusted every inch of their mentality when approaching combat as they run headlong into enemy fire, but what's more interesting is they actually usually survive it. How, though, would an organic species be shaped in this manner, and what exactly are these traits that they sport? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's dive into the lore and morphology of the Krogan. To understand any species, whether it be on Earth or somewhere else, we must first come to understand the environment that they live in. We humans, while not being the toughest, having the best defenses, and our lack of claws and meager muscle mass provide poor offensive capabilities to boot, rose to the top of the food chain by using our minds to outsmart predators much larger and stronger than us. On Tuchanka, the Krogan did not rely on smarts as much. Instead, their evolutionary path took them down a much different way and invested heavily in their physiology to overcome the predators of their planet rather than their brains. Tuchanka is a world that would be considered inhospitable by most species standards, but to the Krogan, there is no place like home. The planet sports many of the same characteristics of Earth, such as 1.1 atmospheres of pressure at sea level and 1.14 Gs of gravity, even when it is almost twice the mass of Earth. However, its temperature is sweltering to most species visiting Tuchanka, which by the way is ill-advised, so just stay away from it. The temp ranges from about 161 degrees Fahrenheit or 72 degrees Celsius to 97 degrees or 36 degrees Celsius in the shade. You could technically survive there, but a human staying for prolonged periods would need multiple gallons of water a day along with salt tablets, and even then could still suffer from heat stroke if any stress was put on the body. The Krogan, however, happily live in this temperature but have opted to live underground in their bunkers, probably because of the nuclear radiation, and generally steer clear of the surface. There are large predators, highly infectious diseases, and quite a scarcity of resources on this planet naturally occurring. But what happened? Surely life didn't evolve under such harsh conditions naturally. Well, you would be correct for the most part. Thousands of years ago, prior to the planet's current state, it was much more hospitable. Well, by Krogan standards anyways. Shallow, silty seas led to an explosion of vegetation as large jungles grew out of them. This in turn led to a blow-up of other life forming, which in turn led to predators. For millennia on the planet, life would eat life, much like on our own planet, but at a much more violent rate. Even certain types of plants were known to eat entire animals. A species would prey on one species, only to have that species adapt and then prey on the original, and then so on and so forth. This led to a genetic malleability as the genes of creatures became highly susceptible to change due to natural selection and basically who would actually live to breed, and also who was the strongest and fiercest. For a time, there was balance, although it took quite a bit of bloodshed to maintain this balance. Eventually, one species rose amongst the rest, overcoming the sheer amount of predators living on the planet, and began to tip the scales in this race's favor. Despite the unforgiving homeworld, everything wanting to eat them, and extreme conditions, the Krogan ascended to the top of the food chain, for the most part, as there are still things that will eat them like the thresher maw, and dominated all others around them. This led to their mentality that everything is a fight, and the will to survive and win was deeply ingrained in their mentality. At the beginning, things were going well. The Krogan fought predators united, and they all had a common enemy. Over time, they drove back their would-be consumers, and this led to a safer area where the Krogan could continue to advance. As their society evolved, their technology advanced over time as well. Once they learned to split the atom, however, everything went awry. With no more challenges or predators to really fight against, the Krogan found that the thing that they would come to fight against the most was themselves. Eventually, it came down to nuclear war. This is the state of the planet as we see today. The Krogan essentially eradicated all their progress and reverted back to warring tribal bands of warriors in an effort to become top clan. Kinda sounds like a Halo 2 lobby. Turns out we aren't so different after all. Anyhow, this went on for quite a while with no progress either way, but for their temporary luck to hold out, I suppose, the Krogan came in contact with the Solarians. The Solarians uplifted the Krogan out of their current predicament and gave them technology. This allowed the Krogan to settle different worlds, but there was a reason for this. As the Krogan began to experience a population boom on these new worlds, the other species were fighting in the Rachni Wars. Eventually, with all the Krogan's ferocity and love for combat, they used their sheer numbers to fight the Rachni back, even so much as chasing them back to their home worlds and killing the queens. And for a time, things were good. The Krogan took these planets and began to build their numbers with their massive clutches of eggs and lack of predators. Over time, however, they needed more and more resources, more and more planets, until finally they begin to settle an Asari planet, which the Asari were just not having. A meeting was called, but a warlord essentially threatened the galaxy saying, try and take back your planets. This challenge was met with one of the more morally dubious answers in the galaxy, the Genophage. The Genophage was designed to stabilize the Krogan's numbers and take away their numbers advantage. Designed by the Solarians and deployed by the Turians, this would put a stop to the Krogan rebellions by only allowing the Krogan 1 in 1,000 live viable births. The Krogans were forced back and severely weakened by this hit, and since its deployment, they have been searching for a cure. But one of the things that should be noted, harping on the gene's adaptability, is it seems that the Krogans are almost on the verge of overcoming the Genophage by natural processes. This testament to their genome is astounding, as really it didn't take that long. Regardless, a second Genophage that was similar to the first Genophage was basically dropped on them to keep their numbers reasonable later on. All in all, the Krogan, after the use of the Genophage, become very self-serving. Rather than focusing on the future of their species, they now believe in a more singular Krogan than a collective. But it also should be noted that the Krogan are naturally a very blunt and unsympathetic species. These warriors are fierce in combat due to the brutality of their surroundings on their home planet, but what has this complete gauntlet of a planet yielded in terms of physical adaptations? Quite a few interesting ones that are perfectly suited for a species forged in the fires of what is essentially an evolutionary war. So, I'm going to be real with you. A Krogan's physiology is a biologist's dream concerning how they are structured and how they have adapted. So let's get right into it, because it seems for every form of attack, there is an answer. The Krogan are a reptilian species that are bipedal like most intelligent sapien species barring the Elcor. They are usually going to range from about 330 to 440 pounds or 150 kilograms to about 200 kilograms. Some of the larger, more alpha Krogan can weigh upwards of 800 pounds or around 362 kilos, although it should be noted that this is not the norm and should be considered an outlier. Their feet contain 3 long toes, and the leg is shaped in a digitigrade structure. Continuing up the body, we can see that the standard Krogan is going to have quite a bit of muscle, and you may think that the armor just makes it look larger. No, that is literal muscle and body. Curious about the hump on its back? Well, we will get to that momentarily. I mentioned earlier that their body was adapting to the Genophage as it was a virus, and there is good reason for this. The Krogan's homeworld sports many different types of diseases, all extremely virulent and destructive. A human's immune system may not be able to contend with an infection like this, whereas a Krogan may see it as catching a cold. In time, it seems that their body has begun to adapt and push out the Genophage, but it has not completely come to pass yet. A strong immune system is great, but what's better than catching the disease and fighting it? Just not catching it at all. A crucial barrier to this disease is a strong hide of the Krogan. In fact, the hide is so strong that it mostly seems completely impervious to damage, apart from the use of a molecular blade or the impact of a weapon's discharge. The hide of a younger Krogan is usually yellow and then turns darker brown as it ages. Younger Krogan also have their head plates with soft portions in the middle and are not completely fused together, but as the Krogan ages, these plates will fuse together to create one solid plate. Anyhow, this hide is incredibly thick and designed to withstand the attacks of much larger and stronger predators. Another interesting thing to note about the facial features of a Krogan is that its eyes actually sit on the sides of its head versus how a human's eyes sit on the front of their head. The reason for this is that it gives it a field of view of about 240 degrees, which will easily give it the acuity to see other predators around the area, whereas a regular human has got around 180 degrees of vision, and even then it's pretty blurry around the sides. So a Krogan would be able to see everything going on around it and obviously be able to react to anything that is coming to eat it. One of the interesting things about injuring a Krogan, if you do manage to make it past their hide, is the blood rage ability. Blood rage prior to the nuclear war was actually seen as a mental illness, as they were impervious to pain and in a state of absolute ferocity. This was brought on by apparently very low levels of serotonin. In human, low serotonin levels lead to depression, but it also can lead to irritability. Usually this section of the population concerning the Krogan, which was very small, roughly 1%, was put away in institutions as to not harm anybody or society itself. Ironically, after the bombs fell, this harsh natural selection of Tuchanka chose only these Krogans as survivors. So today, all Krogan are essentially infected with this blood rage, as they are the only ones who survived. So how does blood rage work? Well, in conjunction with the rest of the Krogan's internal physiology, of course. Starting with its source, where does this mental illness come from? In the limbic system of the Krogan, much like with with humans exists a portion of the brain responsible for processing fear and rage. In the Krogan species, it is much larger and therefore can take over other portions of the brain, or at least handle the workload. Typically, the frontal lobe is responsible, at least by human standards, for thinking and logic. In times of extreme stress, humans have been known to act on instinct in flight or fight. Some report not feeling pain, or moving very quickly, or even having super strength. All this is anecdotal, but the same exists in the Krogan. When a Krogan enters a blood rage, the Krogan is no longer rational and no longer feeling. It will run headlong at an enemy and begin attacking. The only way to bring it down is to completely destroy the body. The Krogan is not deterred by damage, as it cannot feel the pain in the limbs. Body shots can work, but there is a main issue: the organ physiology. In the Krogan exist secondary and tertiary organs. These organs are designed to serve as backup in case the main organs get damaged, and they have the added effect that if they are activated, the Krogan becomes even more immune to pain and even less logical and able to be reasoned with, which in turn equates to the unleashing of raw power. So, what kind of organs does it have? There are 2 hearts, 4 lungs, and funnily enough, 4 testicles. You ever heard like Rex or Grunt tell someone to grow a quad? It's essentially like a human telling you to grow a pair.
Just follow the highway to Werlock's base if you've got the quads to deal with him in the blood pack.
This was something I wasn't really aware of while I was playing Mass Effect, so now I will need to go back and send them into more dangerous situations. Anyhow, when one organ fails, there are others to keep the lights on. That said, what is the absolute coolest adaptation in my opinion is the secondary nervous system. It is virtually impossible to paralyze a Krogan. In our body, we have literal cells, nervous tissue, connecting to one another to form a cord-like structure to relay signals. If this is cut or damaged, signals don't go, you're paralyzed. In the Krogan's body, there is a primary nervous system similar to ours, but a secondary nervous system is a circulatory-like system of neuroconductive fluid. This fluid circulates and carries signals as if it were like our system. Even when damaged, this fluid can leak out, but will be replenished by the body naturally over time. So it seems the best way to take out a Krogan who has entered blood rage is to destroy the brain or the limbs moving the creature towards you, because otherwise it will just keep pressing its attack on whoever is attacking it. A Krogan is clearly designed to survive as many attacks as possible to its body, and through natural selection has turned itself into a fortress. But what good is a fortress if you starve to death? A Krogan has a perfect counter for this. It sports a large hump on its shoulders that may seem like a very strange design choice concerning armor when you first run into them, but it's actually a literal hump that stores nutrients and water. The more food and water stored in this hump, the longer the Krogan can live without capturing its next meal. Apparently, however, it is important that it keeps this hump large, as it serves as a status symbol. A larger hump denotes a better and more successful predator than those with smaller humps. So the Krogan like to pump that thing up as much as possible. Culmination of all these systems working in conjunction with one another has led this species to be one that can survive the harshest environments and push through the most trying of times. Their physical hardiness has led to an extremely long lifespan, completely blowing away a human's lifespan of about 100 years at this time. The oldest known Krogan that we know of was 1400 years old and a veteran of the Krogan rebellions. So it's 2018. This thing was around, I believe, at 600 AD, just as like reference. And even still, he died of unnatural causes. So really, the Krogan appear to rival the Asari in lifespans. Their hardiness has obviously had an effect on their ability to live a long life, but it also appears that their genome plays a large role too. I would doubt that someone as aggressive as a Krogan's immune system, coupled with the adaptive genes, would allow anything like cancer or genetic diseases to exist within the population, as if they did crop up, the individual with these traits would quickly be eaten or left to die, as the Krogan are not exactly the most compassionate creatures on Tuchanka. The Krogan also have another thing working in their favor, prior to the Genophage anyhow, that aided in dominating their planet. Due to their harsh environment, the Krogan can give birth in the thousands over the course of a year, all producing young who mature very quickly. Even if many are eaten, the Krogan are still able to produce tons of offspring capable of having their own offspring quite rapidly after that. All this comes together to allow the species to push their numbers upwards even in a very trying environment. However, after the Genophage, their fatalistic attitude towards their species' future and inability to produce many young, tacked on with the strain of predator attacks and them outright killing each other, has led to a steady decline in their numbers. The intelligence of a Krogan, while not too pronounced, is still there. To grasp an understanding of atomic science, a species has to evolve well beyond the use of spears and fire. In this instance, since the Krogan have understood science and medical advancements along the way, but unfortunately their more savage nature seems to override most of their logical thinking. An example of the Krogan intelligence is displayed with their biotic abilities. Some Krogan have been able to wield this power quite well and precisely, such as Urdnot Rex. However, it should still be noted that most Krogan do not possess biotic abilities. In summation, the biology of a Krogan has been quite interesting. With their secondary and tertiary sets of organs, incoming damage from other alien species can almost be negated, but was required to survive attacks by other completely powerhouses of predators on Tuchanka. Their other internal processes, like the secondary nervous system and larger limbic system, have yielded a deadly predator immune to pain and logic should it get angry enough. So all this combined means maybe it's a good idea to steer clear of Tuchanka, as the council has suggested. Unless you're willing to do some serious headbutting to let them know who's really in charge. Rex. Probably Rex. But you're his friend, right? So by association it all works out. Usually. Just a thought experiment. How would a human fare against a Krogan? Well, unless you are Shepard, not too well it would seem. Krogans are immensely powerful with thick, sturdy bones, and they're very heavily muscled. Easily able to pick up a human, they could crush you or snap your bones fairly simply. However, if you wanted to have your last act of attrition and would like to injure a Krogan's pride, if you are able to get a knife in between the top of its head and its head plate, apparently it's pretty easy to snap off. Upon losing this head plate, a Krogan is pretty much shamed and an outcast for life. This may also afford you a way to hit the softer flesh with that same knife. However, completely unarmed, a human is no match for a Krogan, so your best chance would be to flee or be crushed. So there you have it, an explanation as to why the Krogan are the way they are, as well as how this has an effect on their mentality and behavior over the course of their evolution. I really do hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did enjoy it and you're new, why not hit that sub button? 100k is very close now, and it's actually kind of a little surreal. And if you are a regular here and you enjoyed it, leaving a like always helps, and I always appreciate it. So, do you have a Twitter? Interested in following a Twitter account? Go ahead and follow me. It's at Roanoke Gaming with 2 N's. I will drop a link for that, as well as my channel's Discord and a link to the Patreon account if you are interested in supporting the channel. As always, I would like to thank my patrons. At the scientist tier, we have Layla Alizarin, and then we got your boy Bowen Goodwin. Next up, our residents are A. Laurentis, Evan Osborne, and Richard Muhlenberg. Our geneticists are Andrew Lawson, Divine Whisper, John Russo, Laffy No Skill, and Steve N. The Master Biology holders are Adam Hartswick, Brandon Brotherton, Brian H. Briggs, Cameron Smith, Scott Grant, and the Otterman. And last but not least, with their bachelors in morphological sciences, we have Ahigao Comics, Alex the Gun Guy, Dustin Ellis, Eric Scott Gillies, Greater Genes 83, Jens Joseph Radical, Professor Bennett, and Zachary Baker. Thank you guys for your continued support. So at 100k, I will be doing a special. I suppose it's a face reveal, but I assure you I have a very average looking face. So maybe it'll also be like a Q&A type deal that I kind of did at like 50k, but now that there's 50k more people, which is absolutely crazy to me, then maybe I should do another one. Anyhow, thanks for watching Roanoke Gaming, and I will see y'all in the next one.